From the new WSAV digital studio, this is All Things Savannah. I'm Frank Morrow.
And I'm Danielle Oak. And today on our show, we have Chef Leif Evans, who is a culinary arts instructor at Savannah Technical College, which is part of the new Savannah Culinary Institute in downtown Savannah.
We're back with Chef Evans after this brief break.
So yes, we've got Chef Leif Evans with us today from the Savannah Culinary Institute. And we've met him before, actually. We were lucky enough to be there at one of the grand openings and had a quick chat there and knew he'd be a great guy to have on board for the show and just sort of dig into what the Institute is all about, but also what Chef is all about. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is good. So one of my first questions for you is, I guess maybe we could do this differently, but I'm really interested in the Food Network. The Food Network had a huge impact on my view of food. Did it make an impact on you when you were younger or before you were in the industry?
Yes and no. So growing up, I think around the time Food Network came out, personally, my family didn't have cable. So I didn't actually realize when I was younger that it existed until later. But I did realize it existed before I went into the culinary world. Insofar as I really enjoyed watching it, I actually grew up watching cooking shows prior to the Food Network. My father and I would watch.
What were they? Which ones did you watch?
Justin Wilson was one that we would watch a lot.
Justin Wilson. Love Justin Wilson.
You know,
and of course, you grew up in Louisiana, you said, right?
No, I grew up in Alabama.
Sorry.
No, I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But my father and I would watch cooking shows sometimes, and so the Food Network didn't necessarily directly influence me going into the culinary world. It was just something I always really enjoyed. The thing about the Food Network, it has been wonderful in terms of opening a lot of eyes to the culinary world and exposing people to things they probably would never been exposed to, get them interested in trying things. But I will say it does kind of sometimes veer a little bit from reality because we sometimes see the way things happen on some of those competition shows and things like that, and they're wonderful to watch, and they're fun.
It's entertainment.
It's entertainment.
Yeah.
But that's not exactly how necessarily a professional kitchen will run and will work, because
some of those ingredients are way off the chart. It seems
some are.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is wonderful to watch. But no, it didn't necessarily get me into the culinary world.
Because whenever I see kids in chef jackets or running around with their knife backpack or whatever that's called, their knife bag, knife roll, I think how many kids got sucked in because of something they saw, on a show and think, well, that's what I want to do. And now maybe it's not the reality of what
it has influenced a lot of kids, and that's not a bad thing. Because in my experience in teaching in the last few years, I have had students who have been directly influenced by watching things like Food Network, Cooking Channel, things like that. And so that has gotten them interested in that's what I want to do. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you kind of have to, what's the word I'm looking for?
Manage expectations?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Manage expectations. So it's like, no one's going to go right out of culinary school and be like, I'm going to be the next Bobby Flay, or, because Bobby Flay did years of work before he became the Bobby Flay that we know. Yeah. So, it's, you kind of have to manage your expectations in that way. So sometimes students do come into the culinary world having watched things like that, thinking that that's what's going to happen to them, or I'm going to be the next online influencer after I make 5 videos. And that's not exactly how that works.
So you have that early influence, though, of watching those shows. Is that a straight line to the kitchen, or is there something else in your path that is going to sort of take your attention for a while? What happens along the way for you?
Well, for me, my personal journey is actually, I started off in the theater.
Did you?
I did. So
Really?
I grew up in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Moved to New Jersey for a little while because I was a music major. Changed my major to theater. Moved back to Alabama. Finished my degree in theater in Alabama. Then moved to New York because
Oh my gosh!
So I originally moved to New York for grad school. Did a year of my MFA. Didn't finish grad school, but stayed in the city and pursued acting. And was never in anything that anybody would have seen. Did do some background work on some TV shows and some movies. So there's a couple of movies where, you know, if you look real quick for about a second and not blink, you might see me.
Classic.
But
Right.
in around 2009, when the economy kind of had that big recession, acting gigs were actually starting to come hard to come by because actually theater companies were leaving the city because they were losing donations
Tough
because
times.
people were hanging on to their money,
Sure.
not spending money on tickets, not giving money for donations. So theater companies were leaving, and I'd always liked cooking. I'd always enjoyed cooking. Like I said, grew up watching cooking shows. Cooked in the kitchen with my mother, then with my father when he kind of gradually took over cooking duties in our family. But still wanted to be creative.
Yeah.
So I figured, hey, why not culinary school? I like to cook. I don't always know what I'm doing, but maybe I can clarify that for myself. So
yeah.
I went to culinary school and graduated the French Culinary Institute 2009 and been in the culinary world ever since.
That's almost to the top. I mean, it's not only sort of like, you know, I just passed by and I was just spending a couple of minutes in a kitchen. You went to the French Culinary Institute.
Yeah, that's
That's a
pretty big
high
deal.
bar for a lot of people
Yeah.
who will never see that, even if they desire it. How did you get there? I mean, again, that seems like such an uphill climb.
It really wasn't. It wasn't an uphill climb. Unfortunately, French Culinary Institute no longer exists. They did change their name to the International Culinary Center, so some people might know them as that. But unfortunately, COVID caused them to have to close their doors because when the world was shut down for months, they unfortunately couldn't afford to stay open. But going there, when I started to go there, they were actually wonderful, very helpful, very open, very welcoming. I just, you know, I got online, started researching culinary schools, specifically in New York, because that's where I was. I wasn't planning on leaving New York at the time. And made an appointment to have a tour and sit down and talk with an admissions rep, and took me all over the school, talked to me, walked me through all the steps it would take to get in, walked me through all the steps of getting loans and everything, because I did have to have student loans to go, and it was actually not that hard of a process, but it was very intense. So started day one, knives in your hand, cutting vegetables, day one.
Yeah.
5 days a week, 9 to 3 every day, 6-month program. So very intense.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Carpal tunnel is a real thing.
it can be if you're not holding your knife correctly. Luckily, I don't have carpal tunnel. So,
Yeah.
Right.
But very intense program, but very focused. Acquired a lot of knowledge in a very short amount of time. But then that start, you know, as I said before, just because you come to culinary school doesn't necessarily you're going to be the next Bobby Flay. Doesn't mean you're going to even be the chef of the kitchen at your first job.
Yeah.
But it gives you a start. It gives you a bump. So, because I know there is that kind of argument that some people say, like, oh, you don't have to even go to culinary school to
Right.
learn. And quite frankly, I work at a culinary school. Maybe I shouldn't say it. No, you don't have to. You don't have to. But it does kind of give you that leg up. You enter the kitchen with a basis of knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, but I have worked alongside people when I was working at restaurants who did both routes. You know, I've worked with people who never went to culinary school, started off as a dishwasher, and worked their way up to line cook or sous chef. But I've also worked with people who went to culinary school. The fact of the matter is how you move up and how you advance and how quickly you do that or how slow you do that is entirely dependent upon you and your skills and what you're willing to do.
Makes sense.
Like I said, going to culinary school does give you that leg up. But yeah, I've worked with guys who made their way up from dishwasher to line cook who took kind of a long time to do it. Some of that was their personal choice, some of that was their work ethic. And I've worked with people who came out of culinary school the same way. But I've worked with people who started as a dishwasher. Next thing you know, within a few months, they're like working that line because that was their work ethic and that was
Yeah.
what they
Right.
wanted to do.
It's within.
So speaking of restaurants, I see that the Russian Tea Room was one of your stops along the way. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I worked there for a season, and it was a very interesting experience. So I started there. When I started working there, I started working like right before Thanksgiving, and then I worked through the holidays until like right after Valentine's Day.
Okay.
And
Intense.
it was intense because the Russian tea room is multiple floors. Sometimes people don't realize it. It's not just that dining room on the street
Okay,
entrance.
yeah.
There's other dining rooms, other floors that get used at various times. A lot of times those are just used, rented out for like private parties and things. So you can imagine, especially during the holidays, when different companies want to do holiday parties and team building and things like that. So from just after Thanksgiving through the New Year, wow. I mean, it was like literally almost one event after another, almost nightly.
An onslaught.
Sometimes, some nights, somebody calls out, you get short staffed, but you still got to make it happen. So some nights literally running from the kitchen on the first floor, serving dinner to customers, then having to finish that up real quick and run back upstairs, put the plates out for that event that's going on, and then run back downstairs. Literally had some nights that were like that.
I can feel my blood pressure.
I was just going to say the pressure
the thought
has
of
to
that.
be like enormous because again, it is New York after all. You know.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that? I mean, what did you? I mean, some people have it within them. You know that if it's pressure, they kind of know how to offload that or how to take it as it comes, kind of thing. And some people, it does weigh on them. How do you have a certain mindset you get into when even in situations now, but going back there, did you tell yourself? Do you talk to yourself and kind of counsel yourself?
Sometimes in the moment you have to. Sometimes in the moment you don't even think about it. You're just getting through it, and then you kind of rehash it after the fact.
Right.
But yeah, it's like in the moment when it's getting to you, it's sometimes you just literally, sounds kind of cliche, but just have to take a moment and breathe.
Yeah.
Stop and be like, okay, and then
Reorient or reset or.
But it's always kind of like the duck on the water. The top is the part that you see that's all nice and calm, and underneath it's
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So you're obviously not in a restaurant now. You're an instructor. So lifestyle is completely different than restaurants.
Completely different.
Yeah.
More consistent schedule. A lot less late nights.
Yeah.
Less chaotic in some ways. Sometimes not less chaotic in other ways. But it's really a lot of fun. It's really a lot of fun. I mean, working in restaurants was fun too, but for a different reason. It took me a long time, actually, when I wasn't working in restaurants, to not hear that ticket machine in my sleep.
I'll bet. Yeah.
So anybody who's worked in restaurants can relate to that. But it's been a lot of fun.
So the road leads here, as you were talking to us, and Savannah is maybe the last stop on the way, maybe not. But it brings you to the Culinary Institute. So just fill in a few of those steps as to how you got here and how you got connected with the Culinary Institute.
So came for a visit to Savannah last year in 2004 in May. For no particular reason other than was just kind of looking for a long weekend away, looking for a relaxing setting, nice place to go. And with things to try out, foods, different events, different things to see, historical things. Came here for a long weekend with my wife, my in-laws, and enjoying Savannah, and happened to be walking down Bay Street. And my wife and I were already thinking of moving south because my family still lives in Alabama, so we were looking to get back south to get closer to my family. And we were walking down Bay Street, and we happened to see the signs. The Culinary Institute was not open yet, but they had the windows, the big signs in the windows, coming soon. And we were both kind of like, maybe we should look into that. Maybe we should check that out. So that's actually what was responsible for bringing us to Savannah, was that got back to New York, started looking into it, opening soon, looked for job opportunities, applied. Chef Gary, who is the head of the department, talked with him on the phone many times, came back here for an interview and an audition, so to speak. I had to basically teach a mini lesson to the students and was observed doing that. And got hired. And what I was hired for specifically was the culinary workshops, which is the recreational program, which Savannah Tech can now, because of the Savannah Culinary Institute, offer for the first time.
What is that exactly?
So the recreational program
Yeah.
is different than the actual culinary program in that you don't have to sign up for the whole program. These are just one-day classes, open to the public, amateurs, professionals alike.
Fabulous idea.
Yeah.
We have multiple classes across multiple cuisines. So whatever tickles your fancy.
Yeah.
Like I said, you don't have to be a professional. You can be a hobbyist. You can be a complete novice. We even have knife skills classes for people who want to improve their knife skills.
Great idea.
You don't have to take those before taking the other classes because, like I said, it's not a regular degreed culinary program. It's just one-day recreational classes. Come take whatever you want,
Oh, that's
whenever
fun.
you want.
Are you finding a lot of takers for those?
We are. So the word is slowly getting out there. We just started the classes back in May. So we moved into the building at the Culinary Institute in March. And then the recreational classes started in May.
Okay.
And so they are picking up. Word is starting to get out more and more. So I've actually had a lot of locals. Most of the people who have taken the classes have been locals, even though we're right downtown across a lot of hotels. Hasn't really been a whole lot of tourists actually that have taken the classes. It's really been a lot of locals.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun getting that going.
Now, you're offering so many other things, though, and the facility itself, we both came away so impressed when we were there in May. Multi-level restaurant, kind of on the ground floor, I guess maybe sub-basement it could be. I don't know, it seems like
There's
it's
something,
below
there's something in
grade.
the below
Right.
grade,
So
yeah.
in the basement is a full-service restaurant.
Yeah.
On the first floor is the cafe, the grab-and-go counter,
That's
as we
it.
kind of call it.
Yeah.
The second floor, there are classrooms for the culinary students that are in the actual program at Savannah Culinary Institute, which is part of Savannah Technical College. And then on the third floor is where we have our recreational kitchen, but there's also a seminar room there
Okay.
that for lecturing of students or if people want to use it for meetings and things like that. But
It's so beautiful.
it's
So
a beautiful,
full of light,
It
too.
is. It's a beautiful facility. It was wonderfully done.
Yeah.
But that's the nice thing about the facility is so the second year culinary students are the students that are in that facility. The first year culinary students are back on the main campus on White Bluff Road.
I see.
So once they finish their first year, then they come to downtown to the institute for their second year.
Gotcha.
And what they're doing there is very hands-on. So I want to emphasize that the menus for the restaurant and the cafe, those are created by the students and run by the students with the guidance, obviously, and instruction of the instructors. But they plan those menus. They do all their own recipe testing. The instructors are there to help them all along the way. So if you go for a lunch service or a dinner service, just know that menu has been curated and created by the students. Obviously, like I said, with the help of the instructors.
Yeah, that's
But it's
fantastic.
not, the instructors are not saying oh, here's the menu you're going to do.
Right.
They're
developing it
They're
themselves.
developing it, having meetings with students, guiding them through the whole process.
And then the back end of that is the feedback from the people who are at these locations, the cafe and the restaurant, right? What kind of feedback do you get? What kind are you looking for? And how is that shared with the students? How does that back end process work?
So in the restaurant, and I believe they do it in the cafe as well, but definitely in the restaurant, one of the things they do is that the customers get a survey when they get their check. And so to kind of be able to kind of a 1 through 10 situation, different categories, and obviously space at the bottom for them to kind of give their own personal notes and things like that. So in the large part, the feedback has been mostly positive, because I think one thing people are excited to see is students doing this kind of thing,
Right.
because the students are behind the line cooking. The students are also the ones doing your serving. So one of the things that the students have to do through the program is they have to do a front of house course as well.
Fantastic.
So they talk about serving, setting tables, things like that. So it's completely student done.
So it's an ecosystem. You can't say, I don't know what you guys do up in front, and they can't say, everybody's aware of how the whole process is supposed to work.
That's a good education.
It is. It's
so
well-rounded, right?
They're getting a very well-rounded education. And even upstairs in the cafe. So the cafe, there's not really a server, so to speak, but it's all the students behind the counter. Everything you see that's been created, breads, pastries, savory things, all done by the students. And they're the ones selling it to you as well. So if you come up to the cafe, you go to the counter, you're going to have a student who is going to be pulling that item for you, working the register, checking you out, things like that.
Yeah.
Instructors obviously still there the whole time, guiding and instructing, but students are the ones doing it.
Do you have business classes, like the business of running a restaurant or anything like that? Is that part of the instruction?
They do go through that.
Okay.
So actually, a lot of the students right now are having to turn in their business plan project.
Oh,
So when they go through the whole process of developing a business, from finding the location,
fantastic.
putting the budget together, all that stuff.
That's fantastic. That's great. That really gives, I think, students a chance to launch or decide if they want to launch or not.
Right. Then it puts them in a place where it's it looks healthy, a healthy restaurant scene, which is the other part of this. What happens at the end? How does that work? And I just wanted to get your assessment of the fact that you're actually teaching students about restaurants in a restaurant town. That's got to have a good impact on them, because they've got a chance potentially to intern work, go right to work, see it in real time in addition to the actual classroom instruction.
It has been a great direct route, because actually currently quite a few of the students are already working in the industry
Are they?
Wow,
while finishing up their program.
fantastic.
And we've also had a lot of restaurants in the industry approach us and talk to us and like, hey, what students do you have coming out?
Yeah.
Like anybody ready to work pretty soon, things like that. So it's been a great opportunity for the students to go into a restaurant, or obviously in one of the mini hotels that we have here in Savannah. And we actually even have one student now who's currently working on the riverboat,
I love that.
doing working
Which has
there.
great
So
food, by the
It
way.
does have great food.
Very,
We were there.
very tasty food.
Right.
Let's just segue into food itself. And what are your favorites? I know this is a typical question a lot of chefs get. What do you cook when you're at home? If you have time, what do you cook for yourself?
Lately, I've been kind of on an Asian direction. Actually, this past weekend, I had a hankering to make pho, so I made some pho. Didn't make the noodles from scratch. I'm not.
Disclosure.
It wasn't that adventurous to make rice noodles from scratch, but yeah, I love Asian food. I love Italian food. Sometimes I get on an Italian kick, and I'm cooking Italian a lot at home. I don't really necessarily have one specific cuisine that I would say like, oh, this is my absolute favorite. I mean, I haven't met too many meals that I didn't like. So,
Well, that's a chef's role, right? You have to kind of look the part to some
Yeah.
degree, I guess. I'm not going to make it, probably.
I mean, they do say never trust a skinny chef, but
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I mean. Exactly.
but yeah, no. Lately, I've been kind of on an Asian kick at home when cooking meals.
Well, I think it's interesting, too, that you've got basically a 9 to 5, as an instructor. And so you're not subject to the whole, the really intensely challenging restaurant hours, which I think are they sound insane.
They can. It's slowly changing in some ways in parts of the industry in terms of how people get worked, but I mean that's just kind of the nature of the service industry.
It is.
The public wants what they want when they want it, and I mean everybody is of that mindset when they are the customer versus being the server. I mean, I know when I go out to eat, I'm very understanding, having worked in the industry, but you still are expecting a certain level of service, a certain experience.
Yeah.
But it can be very intense. I mean, I know my first job out of culinary school was my shifts were, I want to say, around 13 to 14 hours.
That's a lot.
I was in the kitchen. I mean, now I would go in a little early on my own time just because it was my first job out of culinary school. So it's kind of getting my bearings. So sometimes I go in a little early. But I'd be in the kitchen at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning and be there until midnight or after, 5 days a week. So I know my very first week of doing that job, my first day off, I slept the entire day.
Yeah, of course.
Deserved it. So you probably
I
earned
literally
that.
didn't wake up till like 3 or 4 o'clock that afternoon. But you get used to it. It, the older you get, it does start to take its toll. It's a lot of hours on your feet. It's a lot of up and down, a lot of bending, a lot of squatting, a lot of carrying heavy things.
Very physical job.
It is a very physical job. It is very physically demanding. It's very mentally demanding.
Mentally, yeah.
But it is also rewarding.
Sure.
I've worked in kitchens where, because it is intense, that you get barked at, but it's fine.
It's the environment
It's
to
the
some
environment.
extent,
But
right?
after work, you're both sitting at the bar enjoying a beer together.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just one of those things.
So we always punchline this show, because we have to, with, Savannah. This is what we are, all things
You love
Savannah.
it, yeah.
So you're here. What are your impressions?
Welcoming, obviously historical, calm. For the South, good weather. It hasn't been too extremely hot. I mean,
You've hit a summer.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, well, like I said, I grew up in Alabama, so
Okay.
it was not uncommon for July to be like 105 degrees, and with the heat index 110 some days. But my wife and I have really enjoyed being here in the almost year that we've been here.
Yeah.
One thing we've also enjoyed about Savannah is the diversity. And I mean, that may have to be directly due to being a port city, but that was one thing that we appreciated too, especially having lived in New York, which is nothing but a world of diversity.
Yes.
But having come to Savannah and, obviously a lot smaller, but still very, very diverse. I mean, I grew up in Tuscaloosa. Living in Savannah, I've seen I don't know how many Asian markets.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know that there's maybe one in Tuscaloosa. So, all different kinds of cuisines of restaurants.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that we've really enjoyed, especially having come from New York City.
Because it's almost like you'd almost have to be debriefed to come back to a small town after being in New York City. I would imagine that's a huge change.
Yes and no.
Yeah?
I mean, it's been kind of interesting. One thing people used to tell me when I first got here is that, there's normal time and then there's Savannah time.
Yeah, right.
That's a recurring thing.
That is
You
kind of
have to
one
know
thing
that.
that I've had to kind of get used to is, yes, I grew up in the South, but obviously I was used to a certain pace. I lived in New York for a long time. I lived there for 22 years.
Yeah.
So I had gotten kind of used to a certain pace and kind of the lifestyle around that pace. But I have really enjoyed and really appreciated kind of getting back to slowing that down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a nice thing. One last question, and I'm not going to ask you to name names, but what are your feelings about the restaurants that we have here in town? We've got new ones popping up. We've got some cherished old ones. How would you rate it?
Oh, man.
A little pressure at the end, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
And not to compare it to a big city like Chicago or New York, but just it is what it is. So how are we doing here?
Well, doing a wonderful job. But I think it's a little unfair to necessarily, when it comes to that aspect, because I've been to restaurants here since I've been here that are just as good, if not better, than some restaurants I've been to in New York. So it's not really a New York Savannah thing, it's a restaurant thing. So it's not to say that just because you've come to Savannah, lower your expectations. No, that's not the case.
Right.
Or go to New York and raise your expectations. No, that's not the case.
Yeah.
It's a restaurant by restaurant situation. I mean, obviously a restaurant here is going to be directly influenced by its local environment.
Right.
So like my wife and I have been to the Gray since we've been here. Had a wonderful experience, had wonderful food. Obviously that menu is directly affected by where we are. And obviously there is a history behind that. But it's I wouldn't say, oh yeah, just because you're coming outside of New York City, wherever that may be, lower your expectations. No, our expectations, I would say, in our experience of going out to eat, have been met and sometimes been surpassed.
Love
So,
it.
Good to know.
That's
yeah.
great. I'm so
Yeah.
glad to hear. That's a great way of putting it too. Instead of it's not apples to apples necessarily as far as the town is concerned.
Yeah.
We're looking at individual restaurants and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us.
Yes.
You are a feast of information.
Oh my gosh,
Couldn't resist
couldn't
that.
help that.
Chef Leif Evans with the Savannah Culinary Institute, a great place, and we'll have some information on the screen about it.
Yes.
But we wish you continued success, and I'm so glad you stopped by.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're back after this short break. Well, that was a wonderful treat to have Chef Evans with us, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
that was great.
And a lot of food talk today.
Yeah. That was fantastic.
Well, we certainly hope you check out the Culinary Institute at Savannah Tech, and we hope to see you next time right here on All Things Savannah.